Olive oil. Olive oil has been produced in the Eastern Mediterranean for approximately 6,000 years. With the earliest evidence of systematic production found in the northern Levant region of modern Syria and Turkey, and clay tablets written in the Linear B script of Minoan Crete documenting its trade as far back as 3000 BCE. In ancient Athens, the olive tree was considered so sacred that cutting one down without state permission was punishable by exile. The oil's character comes from its high content of oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that resists oxidation under heat, and from polyphenols such as oleocanthal, a compound that triggers the same biochemical pathway as ibuprofen, which is why high-quality extra virgin olive oil causes a brief peppery sting at the back of the throat. Today it remains the most traded edible oil in the world by value. And global consumption grew by 73% between 1990 and 2015 as Mediterranean diet research expanded its market beyond southern Europe. Coconut oil. Coconut oil was developed as a commercial product by traders in South Asia and the South Pacific in the 1860s and was a dominant cooking fat in the United States until World War II. When the Japanese occupation of the Philippines cut off its supply and American manufacturers pivoted permanently to domestic polyunsaturated oils. The oil is roughly 90% saturated fat, with lauric acid making up around 40% of its total composition. A fatty acid that occupies an unusual position in nutrition science because it behaves partially like a medium-chain fat, metabolized more quickly than long-chain saturated fats, yet also raises LDL cholesterol similarly to them. Epidemiological studies of Polynesian populations, who historically consumed coconut oil as their primary fat source, have documented low rates of cardiovascular disease despite high saturated fat intake. A finding that nutritional scientists continue to debate. The American Heart Association's 2017 advisory against coconut oil generated significant pushback from researchers in the Philippines and Indonesia, two of the world's largest coconut-producing countries, who argued the advisory conflated coconut oil's fatty acid profile with that of animal fats. Canola oil. Canola oil was created in Canada in the 1970s by plant breeders Keith Downey and Baldur Stephenson at the University of Manitoba, who used conventional cross-pollination to transform rapeseed, an industrial lubricant crop used in World War II marine engines, into a food-safe oil by reducing its erucic acid content to below 2%. The name is an acronym trademarked in 1978 by the Western Canadian Oilseed Crushers Association, standing for Canadian oil, low acid, chosen partly because selling a product called rapeseed oil in supermarkets was commercially impossible. The finished oil contains only about 7% saturated fat, one of the lowest among common cooking oils, and provides both omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in a ratio that nutritionists consider favorable. Canola became one of the most consumed cooking oils globally, but ongoing online skepticism around its origins and GMO associations, particularly on Reddit and health forums, has driven significant growth in the cold-pressed rapeseed oil market in Europe, where the same crop is sold under its original name without controversy. Sesame oil. Sesame oil has one of the longest documented histories of any edible oil, with sesame seeds found buried at archaeological sites in Zhejiang, China dating back approximately 5,000 years, and evidence of oil production in India and Mesopotamia recorded more than 3,000 years ago. There are two functionally different versions of the oil depending on how the seeds are processed before pressing. Cold-pressed sesame oil has a high smoke point that makes it suitable for frying, while toasted sesame oil, made from seeds roasted before pressing, develops an entirely different aromatic profile through Maillard browning reactions and is used almost exclusively as a finishing oil, since its volatile compounds degrade rapidly under heat. A 2020 study published in the journal Foods measured lignin content across sesame oil products in Korea and estimated that Koreans consume an average of 18 milligrams of lignans per day from sesame seeds and oil alone, primarily from the oil, which provides 77% of that intake. The Korean historical record Samguk Yusa, which documents the Three Kingdoms period ending in 668 CE, includes references to sesame oil being offered at Buddhist temples, placing its cultural significance in the region at over 1,300 years. Avocado oil. Avocado oil was known to the Aztecs, who referred to the avocado fruit as vegetable butter and recognized its high fat content centuries before modern cold pressing technology existed to extract the oil commercially. The flesh of the avocado contains up to 30% oil by weight, a concentration found in very few fruits, and that fat is extracted from the pulp rather than a seed or bean, making avocado oil one of the only fruit flesh-based oils in widespread culinary use. Refined avocado oil has a smoke point of up to 520 degrees Fahrenheit, the highest of any plant-based cooking oil, which is the result of its exceptionally high oleic acid content resisting thermal degradation at temperatures where most other oils begin to break down and produce harmful aldehydes. A 2020 study by researchers at the University of California, Davis found that a majority of domestic and imported avocado oil sold in the United States was either rancid before its expiration date or adulterated with other oils, with some bottles labeled pure avocado oil containing nearly 100% soybean oil, a finding that generated significant coverage in food journalism and consumer advocacy circles. Flaxseed oil. Flaxseed oil, also called linseed oil, has been documented as an edible fat in Central Asia for at least 6,000 years and was one of the earliest cultivated oil crops in human history. Predating olive cultivation in some regions, it holds the highest alpha-linolenic acid content of any common cooking oil, with omega-3 fatty acids making up roughly 50 to 60% of its total fat composition, a ratio that exceeds even fish oil supplements sold in capsule form. The problem is stability. Flaxseed oil oxidizes faster than almost any other edible oil because polyunsaturated fats, particularly omega-3s, react rapidly with oxygen at room temperature, producing rancid compounds within weeks of opening if the bottle is not refrigerated. This same chemical reactivity that makes it a poor cooking oil made it invaluable in industrial applications, where linseed oil has been used since the Renaissance as the drying base in oil paints, and is still used today in wood finishing and oil-based varnishes. The painter Rembrandt used linseed oil as the binding medium in many of his works, meaning the same molecule that modern nutritionists recommend for its omega-3 content has been drying on gallery walls for 400 years. Peanut oil. Peanut oil entered commercial production in the mid-19th century in Europe, originally as a cheaper substitute for olive oil, after French chemists realized that the high oil content of groundnuts imported from West Africa and South America could be pressed and refined to produce an edible fat with a mild flavor and stable composition. The oil became industrially significant during both world wars as a cooking fat, lubricant, and even as a fuel source when petroleum supplies were disrupted, and Henry Ford famously ran a diesel engine on peanut oil at the 1900 World Exhibition in Paris as a demonstration of alternative fuel potential. Its smoke point of around 450 degrees Fahrenheit, combined with a near-neutral flavor that does not transfer strongly to food, made it the preferred oil for deep frying in commercial kitchens and restaurant chains for most of the 20th century. Peanut oil is high in oleic acid and naturally low in trans fats, but its use in restaurant frying declined through the 1990s as allergen labeling requirements made it logistically complicated for food service operators. Despite refined peanut oil being considered safe for most peanut allergic individuals by most major food allergy organizations. Sunflower oil. Sunflower oil was first commercially extracted in Russia in 1830, when a serf named Daniel Bokarev reportedly discovered how to press oil from sunflower seeds, a crop that had been cultivated in North America for food by indigenous peoples for thousands of years before being brought to Europe by Spanish explorers in the 16th century. Russia and Ukraine together still account for over half of global sunflower oil production, which is why the disruption caused by the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine triggered a rapid global shortage and price spike that affected cooking oil markets across Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia within weeks. The conventional version of the oil is high in omega-6 linoleic acid, a polyunsaturated fat that produces aldehydes when heated above its smoke point at a rate 2 to 3 times higher than monounsaturated oils. According to a 2018 study published in Acta Scientific Nutritional Health. High oleic sunflower oil, a modern cultivar bred to shift the fatty acid profile toward monounsaturated fats, was developed specifically to address this heat instability and is now widely used in food manufacturing as a more stable alternative. Palm oil. Palm oil is the most produced and consumed vegetable oil in the world, accounting for roughly 35% of global vegetable oil production as of recent years. And its fruit clusters yield far more oil per hectare than any alternative crop, which is both the source of its industrial dominance and its environmental controversy. It originates in West Africa, where wild oil palms have been harvested for thousands of years and where archaeologists have found evidence of palm oil residue in ancient Egyptian tombs dated to around 3000 BCE, suggesting it traveled along early trade routes from Central Africa to the Mediterranean. The oil exists in two distinct fractions with different properties. The liquid fraction, called palm olein, is used in cooking oils throughout Southeast Asia and is the oil consumed in the vast majority of fried street food across Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, while the solid fraction, palm stearin, is used in margarine, soap, and confectionery fats. Deforestation linked to palm expansion in Indonesia and Malaysia drove the oil into one of the most contested commodity debates of the 2010s, prompting boycott campaigns in Europe and certification programs such as the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. Though critics have argued that replacing palm with alternative crops would require significantly more land due to its yield efficiency.